think I've got to go back to childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I grew up in Hume, next to Moss Side in Manchester, and we grew up half caste, very comfortable being half caste. We were aware of racism, of course we were, but we were I always say I grew up in a village called Manchester. Before I did Strength of Our Mothers, I did Afro Solo UK, which recorded Africans who came in from 1925. And I did that as a bit of a buffer against the Windrush being the timeline of migration. So although there was some tensions between so-called full blood and not full blood, based around hair, skin tone, stuff like that, I think we were very comfortable being half caste. And someone I interviewed for Afro Solo said, you know, white people were scared of half caste because we knew all about them from our mothers. Our mother taught us how to respond and to smell when racism's in the air. Obviously, I matured. I went through a coloured phase, and then eventually I came out black, politically black, awarely black. And I came into the arts, and the arts taught me really what racism really is, that manipulation of racism, that controlling element, that pushing you into the corner. You know, the National Front guy, you can see him coming a mile away, but the middle class racism, those who let's agree to differ, they are really dangerous. So suddenly I'm in a new world. And in this world, I'm multicultural, I'm culturally diverse, I'm an AIMS, I'm a 14% match, all these labels. So being black and holding on to that was really important. But being black as a daughter of a Nigerian father and Liverpool mother was also important because you can't see my mum. It wasn't until I wrote Story of M, I'd written a poem about being mixed race, that I had any thoughts about doing the research because I'm not, it's different for me. I'm using the word research, but it's I'm not researching, I'm sharing stories, particularly in Afro Solo, the friend of mine who transcribed everything. I remember saying to her, don't you ever try and blackmail me? Because as I interviewed people, I shared my story with their story. So Zadie has my life on tape. So I think it's quite different than coming in as, I'm going to use a professional researcher. We were sharing stories. Because of the success of Strength of Our Mothers, and that success I have reaped not just in England, but in Europe, in America, where technicians have said to me after the show, can we have a coffee, and then want to tell me about their relationship and their marriages. And because so many of the interviewees, 33 chapters, I think, in Afro Solo, talked about their mothers, because we are the generation of mixed race. There were no black women around. So obviously, you know, that's where the relationships came, whether they were marriages, good, bad, indifferent, just relationships, or dreadful relationships, right across that spasm, or sphere rather, of what a relationship can be. I decided to come back and do the mothers. And Lucy said about she couldn't interview mothers because so many of them were already passed. In Strength of Our Mothers, 4 people passed within 2 weeks of me interviewing them. Since then, 6 more people have passed. In Afro Solo, I mean, I've lost count how many funerals I've been to. So this is a really important history. And it's a history of defiance. I watched the BBC programme last night, Soul Music, I'm not sure it was broadcast last night. And it talked about the moment James Brown went into the studio and recorded Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud. And I sat in the chair and I wept. And although I was saying to myself, don't be so silly, don't be so silly, it was such an important moment. And I think Strength of Our Mothers, Brown Babies, we have to be proud of what we are. We're not going into a confession. We're not giving ourselves up as victims. We're saying, we defy you, you know? And I think Jesse Jackson, again, in the thing last night, was calling out the things, you know, whether I'm welfare, I'm still vital, I'm still here, and we're vital. No matter where we go in our course of lives, no matter we marry somebody white, somebody Spanish, no matter, it doesn't matter. we're vital. We're, you know, there is one race, we are the human race. And some of us will sit down and have, I mean, I tried to interview one young man, well, I don't suppose he was that young, who rang me about 5 hours before the interview was supposed to happen. And then eventually rang me, and he was a wreck. He could not revisit that past. He really couldn't. And I was really concerned for him, because I thought it opened up a nightmare for him that he was going to have to revisit, that perhaps he blocked for time. So we know they're not all happy stories, far from it. But life is like that. You know, white and white marriages have stories like that. It is racism at the crux of our society that placed us mixed race children as odd. And then as we go into the education system, as failing. I get invited to schools to work with the mixed race kids because they're not blending in, or they're confused. They always want to say we're confused. Not confused. We know who we are. And by the exhibition, the publications, we're stamping that and saying we know who we are. And we're very proud of who we are.